Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us in part two. We're going to be like in part 422. Just kidding. When we do these little hash outs before we hit record, there's so many things that we want you all to know, but we're going to continue our conversation around full therapeutic disclosures. Again, the amazing Luke Gordon joining us as well in these conversations to add so much more to the content of what we all want you to walk away with. And today we're going to touch even more so on the reasons why you would have a disclosure and why not, along with some excuses that we hear as to why not, hopefully to debunk some of those. But let's just get right down to it with this episode, y'all. Like, why? Let's just go through some of these reasons as to why we as professionals in this field, doing what we do, knowing what we know, seeing what we see, why do we want our clients to consider a full therapeutic disclosure? And the first one, we actually have it on our website. I was reading through it before we went on here, and I wrote it in our bullet point as number one because it just really hit me. It's your basic human right and relational right to know the truth and know your reality. I just wanted to start off with a bang because I think that basic human right is a powerful statement.
A lot of people don't realize that that's a basic right, that they have been denied that in so many relationships, in their life, like even in their family relationships and childhood relationships, but especially in your primary relationship. It is a relational right and a basic human right to have truth.
Yeah. Truth about you, truth about your body. It is really, really important. Truth about your reality. I think when we talk so much in the past about that reality collapse, reality fragmentation, like what that has done to you, what that does to your entire body, entire system, it's very impactful. And yeah, I know I didn't realize until I started doing my own work how serious this was and how much of a basic human right this is. So just wanted to put that one out there. This is your right.
What's interesting in this is the compartmentalized brain and how destructive it can be, and often it comes from this place of, like, somebody going, "Yeah, that person has truth. They have it," and determining for the other person that they have reality. It's such an interesting thing because it's so dangerous to think that I know that that person has all the pieces, that I get to determine that for them, and I think about the entitlement associated with that.
Hmm. Hmm.
But it so stems from family of origin, so stems from that experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. The next one is just being able to have informed consent on how you show up in a relationship. When you don't have, as a betrayed partner, when you don't have all the information about person, about your body, about the reality of your relationship, your sexual relationship, your sexuality, the impact that all of their behaviors have had on your body, sexually especially. I think informed consent is another really big kind of mic drop for me when we talk about the reasons why this is a really important piece to healing and getting repair is
Can
being
I
able.
can I ask a question on that, Amy? Like, do you mind describing specifically for the person that acted out or betrayed what informed consent is? Like, if they're just listening to just this episode, like, what is informed consent?
Yeah, and Alana, please add to this because I love your brain on this too. But the first thing that just comes to my mind is what I was saying, like, when and I'm gonna go ahead and use my own personal experience here. When I was in my relationship with a person that I thought was holding on to the same values, fidelity, and not acting out sexually with another person, then the way that my body responded, the way that I mentally, physically, emotionally responded, especially in that sexual interaction, was based on this idea, this false information, if you will, of how he was also showing up to that sexual experience. And so without that informed consent, that's where abuse comes in, right? Where I did not have information that I needed to be able to fully give something that was mine solely as a human to give to my partner, my sexuality, my body. I didn't have key information that I needed to be able to be fully informed to do that authentically, to do that knowingly. And that's
I,
very
I, yeah, I remember the first time that I learned this concept back when I was a partner going through it, and it blew my mind because it occurred to me how one thing that he took away in his acting out was the ability for me to make choices for myself with the knowledge.
Yeah.
And so it's just another way of saying informed consent. But I went, oh my gosh, like if I knew this, I would have protected myself in sexual interactions. If I knew this, I would not have been a stay at home solely. I would have had other ways to protect myself financially. If I knew this, I wouldn't have been chasing him and begging him and pleading to just connect with me. And I wouldn't have been taking all these things on. I lost the ability for all of those years to really choose for myself with full knowledge. Because if I had full knowledge, I would have been making very different choices. So when somebody else took away that ability to choose or took away that agency, I remember I was mad. That
Yeah.
like sadness was deep grief was all legit, but this piece in particular really went into an anger piece for me
Mhm.
because one of my values that is at the core is to have freedom and freedom to choose for myself. And so somebody else taking away that freedom and making those choices for me about what I get to know and not get to know in my primary relationship was very, very destructive. So being able to restore that and allow for that awareness and consent so the partner gets to choose for themselves is such, I want to say it's a gift, but I don't like
It
that.
goes back to basic human right.
Yeah, because it's a basic right.
Freedom is your basic right, and that freedom was taken away, which is why the word abuse is very fitting with this type of behavior. Takes away choice. So giving information so that one can make a full conscious choice is another basic human right, but it's relational. So
Well, and I think this goes really well into the next one of just simply truth and transparency.
mhm.
The foundation of any healthy relationship is built off of trust and truth and transparency. And any 12-step group that you go to, step one is honesty with self and honesty with others, because that is so foundational. And so, full disclosures, we go back to that very foundation and put those pieces back in place.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything more around truth and transparency, you use that word foundation. It is. And like we said in last episode with that healing pyramid, it is the foundation. And it's hard to, it's impossible to feel true safety, trust, vulnerability, and intimacy without it. I'm just wondering, Luke, is anything coming to your mind?
Just that it's learning how to tell the truth is a process. Learning how to be transparent is a process. It's like, okay, all right, I'll just share my truth. I'll just share real. I'll just be transparent. When you tuck things away forever, it's hard to know what truth actually is. I can think of an experience from one guy, and he ended up when D-Day hit and the crap hit the fan for them. He wrote on a document everything that he thought that mattered, and it was all the big stuff. The way he thought was the big stuff, the big heavy things, the things that he thought would end the relationship. That if she could accept, they could go on. And he did something that he'd never done before, and he shared stuff that he'd never shared before. Hey, there you go. He was pretty sure that she just had to look at that list long enough and decide whether to stay or go. And he was really surprised by all the follow-up questions. But he wasn't surprised by it. He was
Didn't
throw
understand matters. That's what I see.
he didn't understand why it matters, so there was a time where he listed all the big things, and she would come with follow-up questions, and he said, "I have about 12 or 13 months from really big acting out underneath my belt, and this happened at the time of disclosure." So he's like, "I'm good, last 12 or 13 months, so it's behind me." And in that process, she got digging through bank records and found out that he withdrawed money. And she's like, "Where is this money? Where did it go? Where did it come? What happened to it?" And he's like, "Well," and he thought, "Okay, I have good news because I didn't act out in a major way with this, but I did intend to." And that was really, really, really hard for her. And he was very confused by that. He
Mm,
had no intention to share that because he didn't think it mattered because he didn't act out using that money, and it absolutely mattered.
yeah.
And truth and transparency for a full disclosure standpoint it's not impossible. I don't like that word, but to give it on my own because I have to use the brain that got me here doesn't really work. So, yeah.
Well, as you're talking, several things are coming to my mind, and so I appreciate you going in that direction. Just getting on the same page, right? Like what you're saying there is this is according to this particular example, this is according to me what I feel like is really important to help bring you up to speed. And in reality, and she's like, oh, no, 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 no. I need all of these pieces of the puzzle to bring me up to speed in reality. And so this going through the process of disclosure brings you both on the same page, which is you have to get on the same page if you want to have like healing and repair in the relationship. And the other thing that you said, learning how to tell the truth. And I would say it is also process for most of my betrayed partners to learn how to hear the truth.
Mm,
And that is also really,
yeah.
really challenging to do on your own. And so having someone to help you hear the truth, and that's where these questions come into play as well. Like, again, we're going to go into more detail with specifics as we walk further along this journey of disclosure. But one of the things is I will, when I'm working with betrayed partner, help them come up with those questions. And like you're saying, this one particular client, she's like, I have all these other questions. Like, but how many times, Alana, have you worked with a betrayed partner too, where they start off with like, I don't know what to ask. What do I need to know? What? So I think learning how to hear truth is also really challenging part of the process in this.
Mm,
Well, and not just hear the truth, but working through the fight, flight, and freeze and the emotional regulation because trauma
Yeah,
completely dysregulates you. And somebody who prior to trauma was able to stay emotionally regulated may find themselves the littlest piece of information sending them over the top because their whole system has been so hijacked. So, even having that support system in place, preparing to hear the information, working on this, the body and the somatic healing. So, not just learning to listen to it, but preparing the body for the experience it's going to have of hearing truth.
100%.
well, and I think what comes to mind is the what can't happen unless the full disclosure happens when there's transparency, there's truth, and reality stepped into play is what I think what we all want is the new meaning, the new assigned meaning to the behavior and to the circumstance, which is and that's the relational piece. And you can't get that till you have truth and transparency, which is okay, I get the root. I understand it. I've asked my questions. And now we get a chance to build the actual meaning around that than the perceived meaning.
Mm. So we've just said this many times, but another really important reason for
Full therapeutic disclosure is
safety. Can we just, I know we throw this word out there a lot. And Luke, I would imagine as you work specifically with betraying partners, this word also, I think sometimes is challenging for them to understand. Would you mind just speaking to this piece?
Yeah. The reasons to have is because that safety piece. We're going to talk about safety more for both, for one or the other of the partner or the betrayed.
Well, I think I would love for you to maybe speak to why this is part of giving the betrayed partner safety, a sense of safety by doing this disclosure. Because a
Yeah.
lot of times the betraying partner doesn't see it this way. They have a hard time putting this piece together, I find.
Well, and a lot of times they hear the word safety and they're like, I'm not hitting my partner. What are you
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about?
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like break this down to like, what are we really talking about here with the word safety?
Yeah. The two things come to mind. And the first thing that comes to my mind is what creates safety pretty quickly is just the new pattern, breaking the old pattern of doing something different. And that person starts to show up in ways they never showed up before by giving information they've never given in a different way. So that creates safety by just actually showing up and doing the work. The other part that went to my mind immediately was it creates safety. The person that did the betraying, they stop catering and just focusing on their partner who's hurt, and that makes sense why they are, because of the pain, and they go, "Okay, what are we actually doing here? What does safety need to look like?" And it's not about what the partner's saying, now it's about what do I need? And I need it based upon my history. And now I can create safety for myself, which in turn creates it for my partner.
Well, I love that because it goes back to what you had said, I feel like right out of the gate in episode 1 was, I want to misquote you. It was really good. It was their willingness. It's the first step. Am I willing to change? Am I willing to do
Oh,
something different? It was a really beautiful, you had different words than that, but anyways,
yeah, their willingness to engage in the experience shows their readiness for change. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah.
I'm not I haven't been betrayed, so I can't speak to this. I can only just pay attention to the experiences that I've had in my own life and in the people that I work with. But you have somebody who's hid their entire experience and they only get caught and they do something different and they start showing up proactively with additional information. That's different, right? So that has to do something psychologically for another person's brain, right? It has to show up different. I'm not saying use that as a manipulation tactic or to get what you want, but if I'm the person that got hurt, that was betrayed, and all I get is all I've experienced in my life is catching them, catching them, catching them. And all of a sudden I have somebody showing up in my world going, let me give you information and let me tell you why that actually occurred. I mean, it seems to make so much sense to me why that creates safety right away.
I'm
Not
gonna
all the
say
safety.
I'm gonna say yes to that so much. And a reminder and a disclaimer that the full disclosure process is a process and it is the beginning of truth telling that will continue moving forward or needs to continue moving forward. Because, like we mentioned last week, I see, unfortunately, too often is the partner who's betrayed is like, okay, I'm going to do this really brave thing. I'm going to jump off the bridge and jump into the cold water and do this hard thing. And then they want to dry off and be done and go, okay, we did the hard thing. Now we're done. And it is a big leap. And we have to keep continuing in doing the work.
Yeah.
It's a tool for the readiness. It's the tool for the readiness of change. That's how you phrased it.
Yeah.
And
What
so
a
that's to what you were saying, Alana. Like, yeah, it's I'm ready. And then change is a process. It's
Mhm.
not a one done.
It's not a look at me. I did a full disclosure, so I'm changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about the people that we've been around, the brave people that we've been around doing full disclosures, and it is a hard experience, and they get through that monumental piece, and I'll speak mostly the person been betraying. They're like, I did it. And then there's this realization of, okay, now I showed myself I can give truth. So now I'm going to continue to do truth and continue to exercise that muscle over and over and over again.
All right. The next one, and I think it just goes in with what we've been talking a lot about, but I like the way that this is phrased, and it's just putting the story gap together for the betrayed partner. So the pieces that just got blew up, exploded. A lot of times we're scrambling on the floor trying to find all the missing pieces to this puzzle, and giving a full disclosure helps put those pieces together where the betrayed partner isn't scrambling trying to put them together. And I just really want to hold space for those, especially a lot of my women that I work with that will never get those pieces from their partner. I know this is part of my story is that I didn't have a partner give me pieces. And I really want to caveat this one too. It's like, yes, this is helpful. You're right. This is relational. And if for whatever reason, we're going to go into reasons why not. And if this doesn't happen for you, I just want to say that like you can still find healing and peace if your partner doesn't do this for you. I know it's important. It would be so fantastic. But this one just for me resonates in a different way where I know I didn't get that. This whole series is why this is important. But this one right here, y'all, if this doesn't happen, you can still get healing and put your truth to the story together. And I promise it can be enough. So there's my little caveat with that one. But having a disclosure helps put the story gaps together for your partner.
It's really interesting watching because when a partner puts their general history down on a piece of paper and then they go into the full disclosure and they're hearing it in a timeline and they're matching up. Oh, this happened around the time I had this baby. Oh, this happened when you were working at that place and I was doing this. Oh, and they're able to take their reality as they know it and then these new pieces of information and it gets put into their reality
Mhm.
and yeah, the story gaps, getting those little puzzle pieces what it does to the nervous system to just know and understand more is truly healing.
Yeah. If you want to stay in the relationship, this is why I don't know how you would do it without it. I've been able to move on and heal without it, but I'm not in the relationship. So if you want to salvage and stay in this relationship, then this is important to have those pieces together.
As a side note, I'll just plug Amy. You need to do this.
I
Is
know, right?
she's been talking about this forever, doing the closure without disclosure course, because you can have closure without disclosure for those of you who do not have this opportunity. Because doing a full disclosure takes two people who are willing to engage in the process.
Yep. Yep. Okay. Which the next one is it reduces obsessive thinking and assuming. I think this is such an important one because your brain, as a betrayed partner, is going to go hog wild. And I think there can be a lot of over assuming, under assuming, obsessive thinking, intrusive thoughts when, like we've been talking about, you don't have the truth and the pieces of reality. Your brain naturally, like by design, is going to be doing this. And so to calm that down, having a full disclosure can help.
And it reduces, not removes. I wish it removed, but reduces. Yeah.
Okay. The next one is it brings the reality to both partners. I think we already touched on this a little bit, bringing with a comment you made, Luke, around getting on the same page, just being on the same page. And I think where this one came to mind too is in the stage of the multidimensional partner trauma model where we can't grieve what we don't know. We can't move into that next stage of grieving what we've now understand we really lost. And part of the healing as a couple is also grieving a shared story, bringing both partners to reality of the story so that we can then grieve the story is part of what this can give.
Well, and Luke, when you're working with partners who have betrayed, what I notice is even the person who had all the information rarely has sat down to like lay it out and to look at it and to notice patterns and see how it's connected to childhood. So it brings them into a different level of reality and awareness.
Mm,
Yeah. And I would say the biggest thing that they notice, well, as I watch the betrayed sit there in that room and reflect and ask questions about the story, it fascinates me how I can see her breathe through that experience of, okay, there's truth. Now that makes sense. Baby, infidelity, job loss, but whatever it is, the story, it fits now. And I see that experience for her. And they are the person that they're betraying in that experience. They're just like a cluster. Their mind is just fried because what a full disclosure gives them that they get the clarity on is here's my choices and here's me. And they get that separation. That's
mm,
the clarity that they get.
mm.
And I would say the shared story happens more after the disclosure with a continuation of the work for him. He gets a chance to go, oh, I'm not my choices. And then the shared story comes with the continued work after that point.
Yeah, I like that. The other really big piece is to what you're saying there, Luke, is the accountability, being accountable of those choices that the betrayed partner has made. And there is something, I think, equally healing around the betrayed partner seeing that accountability, hearing it, taking ownership of it in the way that we set that up in person and we have that whole room even structured. We'll get into more of how we do that, but like the way that we even structure the room, right, is so much around supporting this accountability and receiving that from the betrayed partner receiving that.
Hmm.
So accountability piece is huge.
Hmm. Yeah, watching them show up and say, hey, here's my behavior. This is what I know about it. It's huge.
Yeah, and hearing them own it. I've had partners say to me before, and it's like this quiet little, I don't know if I want a polygraph, but I do want them to have a polygraph because I want them to actually like do something hard and show me that they're willing to do the hard. It's not even the polygraph result. And usually it's like almost like a shame thing around that or embarrassment of like, I want them to have it, but I don't need the answer. I just want to make them do a hard thing. And I'll validate that because what I'm hearing you actually say is, I want them to have accountability. I want them to stand up and say, yes, I did this. And yes, I will do the hard things to start to repair. And yes, I'll face my choices with whoever and whatever I need to do to actually allow for real repair to happen. So I just validate them that you want accountability and that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times the accountability part, it's even distracting for me right now because I hear this shame piece coming with accountability. You want me to say that what I messed up. Like, and you want me to feel pain over it. That's what the person that hurt somebody, the betrayer is feeling in that moment. And I like to take a little different look at that and go, well, it's the difference between getting caught and sharing information. When you're accountable, what your partner sees is somebody that's ready for change and is in the change process and they're ready to go. It's not so much that, hey, cool, now we get to beat you down for your choices as much as it is, I've got somebody with me that's my partner that's ready for change that is in the change process. And those are
Which
two
makes you
different
feel
things.
safe, which makes you want to lean into trust, which makes you be more vulnerable.
Mhm.
Yeah. Love
Yeah.
that. So really, ultimately, before we move into like the why not, why you wouldn't do this, which is a little bit less on those, just the process, and we keep using this word intentionally, the process, going through the process of disclosure in of itself is like provides even additional healing, awareness, self-awareness, relational awareness as you go through this. It's not all about, I will probably say this 100 times more. It's not about checking off the boxes. When you really, each partner is stepping into this and leaning in to this process, you will find even more additional reasons why you're finding personally this to be very healing and helpful for you. But the reasons why not, there's just a few, but safety concerns. And Alana, can you just talk a little bit about like what we would consider safety concerns and where we would be like, not ready or no?
Yeah, I'm always looking for if there's any type of abuse or retaliation that will happen.
Mm,
And so if the betrayed partner is going to have retaliation after, be punished for getting information, I'm not going to put them in a situation that's going to put them in potentially a dangerous situation. If there's active emotional abuse happening, I am not going to move forward with that. The emotional abuse piece is a little tricky because with addiction, you get emotional abuse. And so there are some levels of that that even as we're trying to heal from addiction are residual. And there is also more often, not more often, plenty of times that I see where there is not just the abuse that comes from hiding and lying and secretive and protecting the addiction, but also patterns of domestic violence and emotional abuse that is outside of the addiction.
mhm.
That I am keenly aware of, and if we have that physical violence or emotional violence happening that's beyond just the protecting of the addiction, those type of patterns, that's not something that we're gonna go charging into a full disclosure with.
100%. This is why it's important to do this professionally, to have people that know what to watch for and look for. I mean, we've said it before, we go through this with a fine tooth comb so that when you are receiving truth, it is not coming with a lot of the emotional immaturity attached. That's a,
And I will just say too, I do wish that more professionals as a whole were trained in domestic violence and emotional abuse,
Mm.
but specifically in this range of expertise because it is much higher when we have addiction and we have, oh, there's a report coming out. It was in the APSATS conference last year. I am really embarrassed. I can't think of her name.
yes, yes. Kim told me about it.
I can see her face.
We'll
Okay.
have to add it later, but I
We'll have
know
to add it to the show
yeah,
notes.
it's really,
But there's research coming out that it is much higher to have domestic violence when we have the sexual addiction.
mhm,
It's much higher than the general population. And
mhm.
so I do wish, and if you are a professional listening to this, if you have not done additional training specifically on recognizing, seeing, understanding domestic violence and emotional abuse, I think that would really benefit. I truly see that as the future of our work. As a side note, I will plug Sarah Morales and her work on gaslighting and her course on gaslighting. And she has courses for professionals that you can be trained in it. Amy and I have both done it. Luke, I want to get all of our team doing it because it really does lay a good, solid foundation for understanding that.
100%. The other reasons why you wouldn't is if you're actively divorcing, if you're in the process of divorce.
I've had clients come specifically say, I don't know if I need to divorce or want to divorce, and I feel like I need the full disclosure to make that decision.
Mhm.
So I will put, if you were in that place of like, I'm leaning towards divorce, but maybe I'll stay. I don't know. I'm on the fence.
Yeah.
That is not just, that's different. Then we
Yeah,
can,
it's not like you have to stay if you have the disclosure, you can't
yes.
divorce. That is not what I'm saying. It's if my client is in front of me, she's like, "Oh yeah, I got a lawyer on the side. I'm just trying to get the truth and then I'm out." No.
Mm,
We're
mm-mm.
not doing that. Okay, the lack of cooperation from one or both partners, it just makes it like you said earlier, it takes both have to choose into it.
Mhm.
So if one isn't choosing into it, one is dragging their feet or resisting or being a pain in the around moving this forward, then we would push pause and say, "Okay, hold on, time out. We got to reevaluate. We're not pushing this." Our job isn't to push it. Our job isn't to make it happen, to force any of our clients into it, whether it's betrayed or the betrayer. So any lack of cooperation from both partners would prevent that from happening. Not enough sobriety or still actively lying. Luke, do you want to just briefly talk about that?
Yeah. The thought here is, and I want to call it not just sobriety, but emotional sobriety. When we go
Mhm.
to that disclosure, what we have to do is not be shame proof or anything, but we've had to put some space between us and the acting out behavior and be able to go, so we can go, I'm not my choices. You can't separate yourself if you're still making the choices. You're still there, which makes it really hard. Then you won't be able to be emotionally present for your partner, which will be absolutely destructive. And so that's the reason why there has to be some time there. But just want to recognize that it's not, we don't oversimplify that, that it's, we'll make sure that we understand it because we put act or actively lying, you have to have a person that's ready for that process.
We should have said this prior. The type of full disclosure we're talking about is a restorative disclosure. There are times that we have done full disclosures where the partner who's being betrayed needs information immediately or very quickly for their safety. And they need that information. And that type of disclosure is not what we're talking about here. When we're talking about this restorative disclosure that is laying the foundation for healing, it's laying a foundation for relational and recovery work, then yeah, we need, just like you said, Luke, that time and space between the acting out behavior. We need to be able to objectively look at it. We need to be able to own our truth. And there are times that we will do disclosures with just information, just an informational disclosure, but it is a totally different process. And it is very rare that we recommend that.
Right. I'm glad you clarified that because there are all these little one-offs, unique situations. So thank you for clarifying that.
Can I circle back to one piece that's on my mind, which
Mhm.
is there was something you said, Alana, which the betrayed partner says, I don't know if I need to stay or go. I feel like I need a disclosure to make a decision. I picture every person that's betrayed that hears that and goes, see, she just needs a reason to leave. Right. And can one or both of you talk about how that's not what that means? She needs she just needs one more really good reason to get it out of this situation.
Most of the time, they need reasons to stay. Most of the time, I see partners of like, just give me reasons to stay. They don't want to leave their relationship. They don't want to blow up the world as they know it. They don't want to disrupt their kid's life. And so they're saying instead, give me the truth, give me understanding, give me reasons that show me that I can actually stay with you.
And the other answer I would say is because I agree with that, Alana, is go back and listen to the episode, Luke, that you and I did on your podcast around separation. And we touched on a piece of this where I get that fear that would come from the partner that betrayed. And it goes back to choice, right? When you're trying to control your partner's choice of whether they stay or go, that's a problem. So
Yeah.
I understand
Just
the fear.
I wish I could just like share that and go, did you hear that? You're the betrayer. Did you hear that? Like trying to find I need a reasons to stay. And it's what you said, Alana, in the very, very beginning. I can take anything, but I can't take the lies, or some version of that, not a direct quote. And that's what this is about. True.
Let me just wrap up with some excuses that we hear that are maybe you believe might be a reason to not have a disclosure. Money.
Can I jump in here?
Huh?
My gosh. Oh, I don't know. I don't know if it's here's my unfiltered Luke. If you haven't seen it before, here you go. I've got all this thing like in my life where if I want it, I get it, right? I go get it. If it's important to me, I make it happen, right? And if I don't want it, I'll give you a really good reason, right? I got a really good reason for you. And this part with the money, and it doesn't grow on trees. And I recognize sometimes in this situation, there just isn't enough to go around. But we're talking about one of the most one of the most pivotal parts of your entire life, of your entire existence. And for the people that go to a place and they go, no, I just can't. I like to look at how much that's actually been explored to be understood and the level that goes with it, the level of urgency that goes with it. And I think it says a lot about the readiness for change. And I feel with all of that, that I would have activated or pissed off or frustrated some people that, and I don't know, which is what I think about.
What's been really interesting to me is we have had people who have really struggled financially. There has been more than one occasion where we have sat down and said, okay, well, let's work something out. Then all of a sudden it was a different reason. And it wasn't actually the money. It's like that obstacle gets removed and then there's another reason. Then I've also seen people who are like, I have no idea how I'm going to make this work, but I'm going to make this work. And they do. And so that drive is there. It's funny because it's as a professional who I get paid for doing full disclosures, it's hard to speak about this. And in my own head, it's like, oh, well, people are just going to think I'm wanting to get paid. I don't care again where you do the full disclosure if you are
Yeah.
getting the right treatment, but it doesn't change the patterns that I see. Right. That those who are willing to really invest in themselves and do the work. And I'll tell you, a divorce is expensive
Hmm.
and recovery work is expensive. And because of the choices that have been made, unfortunately, we have to face some really expensive consequences.
Yeah. My therapist in the very beginning of the journey, he said, hey, Luke, I think it was the second session. Maybe it was the first. He said, we'll be working together for 5 years. And I'm like, whoa, like that was intense. And I love the expectation set there of you're in this thing and this is going to be, he didn't say this, but I grabbed it. This is going to be expensive. It's going to disrupt everything. Your life is going to change. Buckle up.
Mm.
Right. And I want to negotiate with all this stuff. My addict brain wants to negotiate with the money, with the time, with the energy, with really
Truth.
change, with really
That's
just
it.
change. I don't want to do something different. And the amount of negotiating that I see with that, the reasons that come up in a lot of that's why I'm so grateful you say that, which is interesting to tell a person, okay, all right, we're not going to charge you for that. And that person that's not ready for change is also like, well, there's this other thing too.
Okay, I'll make this really fast, but in a recent therapy session, I was working on some individual changing of something. I was like, yeah, I have some hesitations making this one change. And my therapist goes, yeah, because it would take away your excuse. And I was like, I'm sorry, excuse me.
Excuse me? What?
And I was like, okay, I'm gonna chew on that. I said, I don't like it, but I'm gonna chew on it. And then the next few weeks, I his little voice in my head of, yeah, because if you do that type of work, you'll take away your excuse. And I saw that over and over and over. And I was like, shit, he was right. That if I made this one change in my life, it would take away my excuse for another change I wasn't ready to face yet. we as humans are very complicated. We're very complex, and we have to get real with ourselves about what's really going on and what we really want and what we really don't want, and then face that and work through that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I
So
wonder if it's just like really simple. It's just like, just do the thing that scares the shit out of you the most. Just do that one. Just pick that.
then that's the right thing. So any of these other excuses, just really quickly, they say, already know all of the information, or the partner who betrays says, my partner can't handle the truth. And so it's going to be too hard for them. I don't want to go through this. Like putting it under this idea of like, I'm protecting my partner, which no, you're self-protecting. And then again, that last excuse, it has nothing to actually do with my partner. So why tell my partner the truth? Those are just some of the common, not all, but those are some of the common things that we hear as excuses. And I think if you're recognizing, resonating, or have heard yourself say them before, it's just a good opportunity to pause, reflect, and get a little bit more real with yourself around those excuses.
In almost every full disclosure we've ever done, there has been at least one piece of new information. Almost every single one.
Uh, Alana, I think that there's tons of new pieces of information in all of them. The least I've ever seen is a lot. That doesn't make any sense. But yeah, the ones that are like, oh, that's a little bit bigger. Yeah, that's the you don't. It says I already know it all. It's not possible because compartmentalization is at play.
But
I guess the only one that I just wanted to mention was you already said it, Amy, but my partner can't handle the truth. It will be too hard for them. You don't know how strong they are. You don't know. I don't know. Humans are so resilient. Do not take that away from them. Do not make that choice for them. One of my friends the other day, he was telling me about a run that he went on. It was over 100 miles. And he got done with that run and he said, I think I could have done it faster. And I'm like, dude, you got to be happy with yourself that you did 100 miles. And he wanted to share this point with me, which is he's like, Luke, I have no idea what I'm capable of. I'm capable of so much. And I love that he found that for himself. And I see often that we take that away from the person that we love, is whether they're strong enough or not. It's not our choice.
And part of that, the partner who has been betrayed, part of their process is taking the time to figure out what they need to know and how much. So let them have that autonomy to make those choices for themselves. Yeah. It's so funny. Here's another episode, and we haven't even gone into the details or specifics of what full disclosure looks like, but really does lay a foundation. I will tell you, I already know a bunch of these episodes I'm going to be sharing with my own clients, and hopefully they are being beneficial or are beneficial for you. Next week, we'll jump into the topic of, am I ready? What does it look like to be ready? Also, I'm just going to put a plug. We have a betrayal trauma intensive coming up here in Spanish Fork, Utah in October. If you are in your healing journey from betrayal and are a woman who is looking for having that support and tools, then I highly suggest coming and joining myself, Hallie Roderick, and Laura Fisher for that. So, as always, thank you for hanging out with us this week. Thank you for learning more about full disclosures. And Luke, thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you all next week.
if you have not heard about the therapeutic somatic healing modality brain spotting, I really want to encourage you to get more curious about what this is and how it can help you in your healing journey. Adding this to your healing can be an incredible support in processing and overcoming challenges such as trauma, difficult emotions, grief, anxiety, and feeling stuck. Brain spotting incorporates the mind, body, and mindfulness tools and eye position to assist in creating change. Through brain spotting, we can reprocess negative events and retrain emotional reactions. Whether you are experiencing grief, anxiety, anger, PTSD symptoms, phobias, fears, and addiction, brain spotting utilizes that eye position to locate, access, and discharge that stuck material that's held in the brain and the body. As a certified brain spotting practitioner, I love adding this modality to my clients' healing journey as a more holistic approach to healing in their journey back towards themselves. It is safe, compassionate, and highly effective way to unravel these emotional knots and burdens that you've been carrying. dive deeper and discover how brain spotting can help you regain control, rebuild your self-esteem, and really unlock more healing for you in your journey. If you want to learn more about this, head over to the show notes and book a consult to learn more about how this can support you in choosing to heal, choosing to recover, and choosing you. Take care, everybody.